Good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible to you?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Welcome, ma'am.
And you are able to see the slides on the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll wait for a few minutes just to see if some more of you will be able to join the session. And after 2 or 3 minutes, we'll start. Okay?
Okay.
Right, let's slowly start and let others join as we go along. Welcome to the second session on interviews. I'm very glad to say that at least some of you who were here for the last session are also here today. Thank you very much, and welcome to the newcomers as well. Right. So in our last class, we had seen why we conduct interviews, how we can prepare for interviews before we approach the D-Day. We had looked at several kinds of questions that one might receive from an interviewer. We had also seen one particular category of questions called HR questions, classic HR questions. We had discussed a strategy to answer classic HR questions. Can someone tell me what that strategy was? One particular formula with which we can answer questions like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Present, past, and future in that formula we have to say.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, it is present, past, future formula. You start from the present, you address your past, you try to tell them how it is that you learned the skills which enable you to fulfill your responsibilities in the present, and then you move on to the future. That is, you present your future as the future of the job description that you have at hand. Right? We had also cursorily discussed behavioral questions. I didn't. Okay. Joshna, thank you very much, Joshna, for that answer. We had also cursorily discussed behavioral questions. Behavioral questions are those questions which require us to imagine ourselves in a particular scenario or situation where we have to fulfill a certain task. So, towards the fulfillment of the task, we take certain actions, and the action produces a result. And at the end of the experience, you will realize that you have gained some kind of a skill. You have gained some kind of a skill which becomes your takeaway from the whole deal, right? So, this kind of an answer, which can be structured in this manner, this is called the STARS method. Just like we use the present, past, future formula to answer HR questions, we can use the STARS method to answer behavioral questions. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you are trying to answer a behavioral question, remember that the employer is trying to assess your behavior, the kind of response that you have in a particular situation. So, any action that you take should be able to highlight some qualities about yourself. Some qualities about yourself which are relevant to that particular scenario. Okay? Just imagine that you are in charge of a team and together you have to accomplish a certain goal. In that situation, there are some qualities which you can highlight. For example, prioritizing your tasks. You should be able to prioritize your tasks on the basis of which is more important, which needs to be addressed immediately, which can wait maybe, which is less important, etc. How you delegate your tasks. Delegating is assigning a particular task to someone in your team. You're not trying to do everything by yourself. You're asking someone to do this particular aspect of the work, someone else does something else, and you coordinate between all of them, such that this is truly a group effort. How you delegate your tasks and how you update your supervisors or your managers. Okay? So, in the context where you are required to lead a team, these are all qualities that you can highlight. So, when you try to frame your answer, when you give your answer, make sure that the kind of actions that you speak of are all highlighting such desirable qualities about yourself. Okay? It is also absolutely necessary to include the result or the outcome of your action in your answer, along with the skills that you learned or whatever it is that you consider to be the takeaway from this whole experience. Why is it necessary to always include results and skills? Because the employer or the interviewer is not always interested in your experience per se. Rather, the interviewer wants to know what sort of skills have you gained through this experience and how can these same skills be beneficial to their company. So they're not asking you this question just to see or assess your experience, but they want to see what kind of skill sets you possess, which will be beneficial to their own company if you join their team. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Once again, what is STARS? Situation, task, action, result, skills. Anand, can you tell me what STARS stands for?
Situation, task, action, result, and skills.
Okay, thank you, Hemant. Anand, can you tell me?
Situation, task, action, result, and skills.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now let's move on. Right. Whatever you're trying to put in the form of an answer, do not make generic statements. Generic statements are statements that do not have specific examples and relevant details. So whatever it is that you are trying to communicate to your interviewer, make sure that it is always specific, not some general statement that touches nowhere. For example, if you're trying to say, let's sort of imagine a scenario. You work in a coal manufacturing plant. Let's imagine, right? And for some reason, the people there don't like your plant very much because it's causing a lot of pollution, right? So now you have a situation and your management decides that it is going to construct or rather build a Miyawaki forest around the property so that the results or rather the effect of the pollution is not so harshly felt by the people who live nearby. So that's your task. You need to build a Miyawaki forest. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to do this alone. You will need a team. You will need to guide the team. You will also need to coordinate between different strata, right? There'll be a management, there'll be the workers. So you're somewhere in between. So you'll need to coordinate between everybody. Situation is there, task is there. Now, what actions do you take? In this particular context, what actions did you take? That is a specific example. Whatever details you give with regard to this specific example are details that are relevant to this example. Clear? It is also very important to not get lost in non essential details. You should be able to communicate all the things that are relevant to the context, but we should not get sidetracked. We shouldn't lose ourselves in things that are not important. Sometimes we tend to blabber, right? Sometimes, even when we speak to our friends, we start off with a sentence that sounds very coherent and then we start ranting. And after 5 minutes, we realize that we have been speaking continuously, but we have not been communicating a great deal. So make sure that when you are in an interview, you do not get sidetracked. Remain focused, okay? And do not lose the thread, the core of the conversation that you're trying to pursue. Like we already discussed, we should always have a conclusion and we should make our answer resonate with the interviewer or our prospective employer. This is a small activity. I think now would be the most apt time to have this activity. Now, I want you guys to go through the information that is on the screen. I will also read it out for the sake of anybody who's not able to see it on the screen for whatever reason. And then take 2 or 3 minutes and give me an answer. Okay? I'm going to read it out. Please pay attention. There is another grammatical error there. Forgive me for that. You have a bachelor's in electrical engineering from a technical institute in India. And you have also pursued a research internship in Denmark. You have worked for 2 years after your bachelor's at a company as a software developer. Now you are looking to get into core data science. How would you answer the question, tell me about yourself? And here is a little hint for you. Use everything you have done in your past to create a narrative that leads to the company to which you've applied. Is that clear to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Take 2 or 3 minutes and please prepare an answer. I will ask Anuradha. Can you tell me your answer? Not right now. Take 2 or 3 minutes. I just wanted to inform you that I might ask you for an answer. Don't leave the meeting simply because I'm asking you an answer. If you do not wish to speak, you can just tell me. That is okay. Don't worry. I just want to hear you speak because this is a communication skills workshop. I could be sitting here and saying any number of things. At the end of the day, if you do not speak, it will not benefit you. Chetan, can you also prepare an answer, please? Maybe we'll have two people giving the answer. This is the scenario that you have in front of you. A quick answer about, tell me about yourself. Right. Anybody who's ready with their answer? Nobody is ready with their answer? Anuradha? Oh, Joshna is ready with the answer. And Biswajit is ready with his answer as well. Okay, we'll take it one by one. Joshna, can you please go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, I'll be saying to the company that while I was working in electrical field of 2 years, uh, then as I was not only working with my software development department, I was also interacting with my colleagues. While I was interacting with my colleagues, I have come to know about this data science. As this data science is doesn't belong to only a single domain, and uh, it can be used in every domain. So I would like to take this data science and electricals to the new heights. Like that's it, ma'am.
That is a very good answer. A great attempt. Thank you very much. We'll also hear Vishwajit's answer. Vishwajit, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes.
So while I was working in a last company, while handling a few works and responsibilities like constructing code and as a software developer, I was doing constructing code, debugging and software testings or deploying the software, analyzing user needs and accessing new and existing software, along with the documentation and managing configuration and defects. So I come across lots of datas in my working profession, in my working while I was working in the last company. So what happened? I was like little bit inclined towards the how are we going to process the data? Before that, while I was I was studying electrical engineering. Um, I was little bit inclined towards the coding background as in my electrical engineering. Two of my semesters I having Java programming. I I mean I was like little bit inclined towards learn codings, and two of my favorite coding languages are Java and Python programming. So I have learned my in my electrical engineering bachelor degree. I have learned those coding, so that helps me to get the job as a software developer. And as well as while I was doing my research work as an research internship in Denmark, I come across of lots of data. So at that moment of time, I need to process my data, process my data. So I was little bit get a hand in data processing. So that's why, as a software, after taking my software developer job, I have come across lots of data. I need to process the lots of data. So that's why I have little bit inclining interest towards that data science. So, and as well as I have handled few of the machine learning algorithms also. So that's why I just wanted to get this job as a data scientist.
Okay, thank you very much, Viswajit. That was a very detailed answer. And there are specific things from both of their answers which I would like to highlight. Viswajit, I need to tell you something. You shouldn't be so nervous. It's okay. You can just speak. You don't have to be so nervous. Okay? So that's just something that I needed to tell you. Now, there
Actually,
was.
ma'am, you said that we should start from the present, and then we have to connect with the past background, and as well as we have to come future as well as. So that's the reason I just try to connect all those things, all the connect
I
the
could
dots.
see that. I could see that you framed that answer very well. Congratulations. right? Okay, so from Joshna's answer, there was something that she said, which is that what attracts her to data science is the fact that it is not limited to any particular department or section, right? Now, that's a very good way to put into perspective your own interest in data science in front of an interviewer. So, you can all take that as a tip, a very handy tip. She said that very well as well. I have worked in a specific department, but what interests me about data science is that it is not limited to any particular department. Just one second, there are a couple messages. Oh, Satish has given a written answer. Okay, thank you, Satish. Can be answered like this. Can you give me 2 minutes? I need to address something that was said by Biswajit as well. Now, Biswajit, what he did was that he very effectively used that present, past, future formula. We could all see that. But something that really deserves mention is that he mentioned that internship in Denmark, right? So that is something that he specifically picked out. There was an internship in Denmark where I had some experience or where I had an encounter with data science or the tools used for data science. That is also a very good way of building an answer. You are looking at a point in your past which contributes significantly to your future. That is a very good way to build an answer. These are just 2 points that I wanted to highlight from both of their answers. So, whenever you're trying to make an answer like this for yourself, keep this in mind. Right, now to Satish's answer. I've graduated in electrical engineering from a technical institute in India. Okay. Also worked for 2 years after my graduation as a software developer at Infosys. It was a bit difficult for me to manage in the start, but it has given me a good essence of being a developer. Now I want to start off my journey as a data scientist. As this company is more towards electrical and I'm from electrical background, I think I will be more appropriate for this role. Yes, Satish, you can answer like this. That is a well drafted answer. And thank you for taking the trouble to put that in the chat box. Okay. One more point that I wanted to address here. It's something that I often see students making. It's a mistake that I often see students make. Data is the same in singular and plural. Data, data. There is no word called datas. So, when you are data scientists, make sure that you do not make this mistake. Because this is so elementary, right? So people can think that you don't even know the plural of data, that you don't even know that the plural of data is data. We shouldn't allow anybody to think like that about ourselves. Data, data. No datas. You can say data sets, but then you are referring to multiple chunks of data. Is that clear? Can you all hear me? Why is there such silence?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, we can hear you.
Wonderful, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much for responding. Now we need to see how to write a cover letter. A cover letter is almost always a standard accompaniment to any job application. You don't just send your resume, you send your resume along with a cover letter. Now the format of a cover letter is quite simply the format of a formal letter. But nowadays, most cover letters are emails. Okay? So, a cover letter, regardless of whether it is a letter or an email, will have a title line, a heading. If it is an email, it will be the subject line. Okay? Then it will have a salutation. So, oftentimes, when you are making a formal application, you can always write dear sir or ma'am, but it is preferable to do some research and identify whom it is that you are writing to, especially in an academic context. Okay? If you are making an application in an academic context, usually with companies, it's not so easy. It is some hiring manager, right? But in an academic context, you're almost always addressing a specific person. If you do not know the name of the person you are addressing, you write dear sir or dear ma'am. If you do not know the gender of the person you're addressing, dear sir or ma'am. But if you know whom it is that you are writing the letter to, then you address them by their name. For example, not by their first name, but by their last name, their surname. Dear Mr. Parker, for instance, right? If you are writing, let's say, to uh, Bhaskar Ramamurthy, was a professor at IIT Madras, right? So you would write, Dear Mr. Ramamurthy. Is that clear? So you are addressing them by their name. You are addressing them by their surname. You are doing it very respectfully, but it also shows that you are aware of whom it is that you are writing to. It shows that you've done some research. That is why this kind of a salutation is more preferred to a generic salutation. But if you do not know whom it is that you're writing to, then yes, stick to dear sir or dear ma'am. Then you have an introductory paragraph, right? An introductory paragraph will contain information like where you found this particular job posting. Was it on LinkedIn? Was it in some newspaper? How do you know of this? So you will mention, I am writing with reference to this particular advertisement, which I found in such and such a publication or a periodical or whatever, right? Then you introduce yourself. I am so and so, my name, and briefly your qualifications. And it is almost always sufficient to give your highest qualification at this point. You do not have to list all of your qualifications. You have to list your highest qualification, right? Then we move on to the next paragraph where you detail how you are a good fit for this job. Now, I don't know if you remember, but in our last class, we had discussed what exactly a cover letter does. So, on the one hand, you have your resume. On the other, there is that job description put out by your company or employer or whoever, right? A cover letter is the bridge between your resume and that job description, right? In a way, you're suturing yourself or you are stitching yourself into that particular job description. That is why in the second paragraph, we address how we are a good fit for this job at hand. What qualifications? With specific reference to the kind of skills that you have acquired or amassed or developed during the course of your education or your training and the kind of experience that you possess. Always keep this section very, very specific. If you have skills, list those skills, right? A lot of the time when I check your answers, I see that you're very clear. You have a lot of perspective. So you're very clear about what kind of tools you use to analyze data. You can consider each of those tools or your mastery of those tools as a relevant skill, right? So you make sure that your answer is very specific. I have such and such a skill. I have so many years of experience. Let's say you are starting off in your career. You do not have several years of experience to boast of. I have such and such an experience doing a specific project or an internship, which you would most certainly have. You will have some kind of an experience or the other. Do not think of experience as something that you can acquire if and only if you're hired by a company. All sorts of training adds to your experience, but you need to be very specific about it. Do not give generic details, right? And you go on to say in your cover letter, why is it that you think that this job description or this company's values, this company's modus operandi aligns with your own goals? How is it that you can see yourself growing with the company? In yesterday's answer, I think it was Kalyani, who specifically mentioned this. She said that she sees her own growth as something that will happen parallel to the growth of the company that hires her. Likewise, you should be able to establish that this is my long term goal, and having this particular position at this point in my career will help me reach this long term goal. And this is also in the best interest of the company which will hire me. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
After that, thank you. After that, you conclude. You conclude by saying, I look forward to a favorable response from you. And then there is something called a complimentary closing. A complimentary closing is where you write yours sincerely or regards with thanks and regards, comma. Then you write your name, your current designation, and your contact information. Okay? That's a very standard format of a cover letter. This is a very formats. Sometimes students don't like formats, but the thing about formats is that they are very helpful. They're very, very predictable. So whoever looks through your cover letter will be able to glean all necessary information about you at a single glance if you follow this format. There's no confusion whatsoever. It is so professional. It meets all expectations. That is why I'm also trying to give you the format of a cover letter. Right, let's move on. This is a sample cover letter. It doesn't use a very conventional kind of alignment. Usually, all things will be left aligned. It is always desirable to have left aligned paragraphs. Everything in the letter would be left aligned. That is standard practice. But you can see how there are specific sentences in each of these paragraphs which touch upon some of the things that we discussed here. Where did you find job posting? Who are you? Why are you a good fit for this job? How does this company align with your long-term goals? These are all things that we must necessarily include in our cover letter. This sincerely, comma, your name, that is called a complimentary closing. Now, we had already discussed that we can ask questions to our interviewers. What kind of questions can be asked to our interviewers? It should not be premature questions, inane questions, silly questions, or very selfish questions. We shouldn't ask questions like that. We shouldn't ask questions which are very clear, obvious answers. It shouldn't look like we are trying to simply ask some kind of a question for the sake of asking a question. No. Rather, the question that we ask to our interviewer should reflect that we have done some research on their company, on the kind of projects that they manage, on the kind of clientele that they cater to. The questions you ask should be educated questions. They should show that you are well informed. Okay? So, questions such as, what would a typical day for someone in my role look like? What are you trying to figure out through that question? You're trying to see the kind of work ethic that this company has. How do they operate as a team? Okay, what kind of morale do they have? Morale is how enthusiastically people work together. That is morale. Okay, how many employees work in this department? You want to know the strength of your team. What are the opportunities for cross departmental progression? Remember how we said very nice things like, my growth will be parallel to the growth of the company? This is where we are following up on that. We are asking our interviewer, what are my opportunities for cross departmental progression if I join your company? Okay? I am not all right with a career that stands still. I do expect to grow in my career. How well will your company allow me to grow? That is the question you're asking, which is a very pertinent question. Always remember that it is not just your need. A job is not just your need. The company has a very specific need which you can fill. Okay? So it's not just you who needs the company, rather, the company also needs you. Right? Remember that. Keep that in mind. Right? What is the most rewarding aspect of your job here? Is there anything rewarding about my job here? What are the opportunities for my career progression 2 years hence? What are we asking there? Will there be an appraisal? Is there any scope for promotions? But we are not phrasing it like that. We are asking a very well phrased question. What are my opportunities for career progression 2 years hence? Remember, it is not about what you ask. A lot of the time, it is about how you ask what you need to ask. Is that clear? Make a note of all of these questions. I want you to keep these questions in mind. And this is not from an examination point of view. This is from the point of view of whenever it is that you go into an interview, I want these things to be useful for you. Right. Hemant, you have a question?
Ma'am, please once again explain the last option, that is, what are the opportunities for my career progression 2 years hence? And also, don't ask premature questions like salary, perks, and benefits. Please discuss on this topic, ma'am.
Okay. Those are both very good clarifications to seek. Right. What are the opportunities for my career progression? Career progression is growth in your career. 2 years hence is after 2 years. Okay. So you're asking to your interviewer while you're being interviewed, if I join your company after 2 years, will I have some growth in my career or will I be in the same position, same level? Okay. So we can't ask, remember, we can't ask premature questions. It will not reflect very well on our character or our candidature. So we need to ask well phrased questions. But if you ask a question like this, you will get to know whether there are regular appraisals in that company, whether that company offers any possibility of promotions. Is that clear? All of these are avenues for career progression. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, about salary, perks, benefits, etc. We can't ask um, very bluntly, how much will I be making? That's not a very professional approach to an interview. Rather, we should allow the interviewer to broach that topic with us, right? So, if the interviewer is professional or if the interview panel is professional, if you are in a good workspace, they will discuss your salary, perks, and benefits with you. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So, when they start discussing this, you can follow up with enquiries. You do not start with a question from your end. Rather, when they broach the topic, you can ask for specifics. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am. Because, ma'am, I am also used to apply different companies, ma'am, based on my diploma qualification. And they used to ask me the number of years of experience, what was my last salary, and what is my expected salary, like this, ma'am.
This is in the application form, not in the interview.
Okay.
In an application form, you will get questions like this, yes. But in an interview, that is a different deal. Remember, an application form is words on a page. An interview, on the other hand, is a conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So let's move on. Before you go for an interview, now we have covered a great deal. Pre-interview preparation, how to write a cover letter, what should be there, what should be here, what kind of questions should we ask. We've covered all of that. Now, you can write down your answers. You can even have a little cheat sheet which you can refer to occasionally. It shouldn't look like you're reading off of a sheet. You can practice your answers, but if you memorize your answers, it will look like you're reciting them. Okay? You are reciting them by rote. Like you have all of these information, you have the stored inside your head. You're not adding to it by way of conversation. You are only mugging up and giving that out. So, therefore, as important as it is to practice your answers, it is also important to not be mugging up and regurgitating. Right. There are a lot of non-verbal communication habits that all of us have. Non-verbal communication habits include gestures and the way in which we, for example, sometimes when we get nervous, we twist our hair, but girls most usually, or if you're a guy with a really long hair, then you might also twist your hair in your fingers. That is hair twisting, and it is a nervous habit. These are all non-verbal communication habits. You will have to keep these in check when you are in front of an interview panel. I do something. When I was smaller, when I used to get really nervous, I used to fidget with my clothes. I would always pull on my dress or somehow fold it this way and that. And then I realized that this was a nervous habit. Then I had to take a lot of effort to stop doing that. I still have a non-verbal communication habit. I use my hands a lot. It's not like I am speaking with just my mouth. My hands are also speaking while I'm speaking with my mouth. So this can either be advantageous or disadvantageous. It can be advantageous if I have this under control. That is, I gesticulate. Shaking legs is also a sign of nervous habit. Yes, very much so. You're fidgeting with your legs. Yes. If I have my hand gestures under control, and if I use these gestures to emphasize my point, then my hand gestures are helping me. If, on the other hand, my hands are going everywhere, but my sentences do not make sense, then my hand gestures are a very not so helpful communication habit. Right? So you need to be in control of your body language and your pace of speech. What is pace of speech? Pace of speech is the speed in which you speak, at which you speak, actually. Right. Sometimes I do this too. When I speak, usually, I speak very fast. What happens if you speak very fast is that you lose control over your sentences. And that can make you prone to errors. You can make a lot of grammatical errors if you speak uncontrollably fast. When you are in front of an interview panel, make conscious effort to control the pace of your speech. Speak slowly. Enunciate your words slowly and clearly. Make sure that you have control over a sentence that you have started. Right? You do not bite your nails, you do not twist your hair, you do not drum on the table with your fingers. When you practice with somebody, ask the other person to notice if there is any kind of a nervous habit, a tic that can be distracting to the interviewer, that doesn't reflect very well on you. And a second person can almost always identify these habits very easily. Once you have identified the habit, make an effort to minimize it, if not eliminate it. Sometimes you can get rid of it entirely. Even if you can't get rid of it entirely, minimize that nervous habit. Right. Filler words. Filler words are a huge issue in our speech. They are all right. Filler words are all right if you use them minimally. You only use a few of them. In that case, a filler word is perfectly fine. On the other hand, if you use them all the time, if for instance, I am saying my sentence like this, filler words are a great impediment to a speech process. So when you are in front of an interviewer, if I keep punctuating my sentence with ums and ers, it can be very distracting to the listener. So you need to minimize the use of filler words as well. An easy way in which you can minimize the use of filler words is if you substitute a filler word with a silence or a thought pause, right? Every time you feel like I'm going to say just take a small pause and then complete the rest of the sentence without using or Is that clear? Right. What do you do on the day of your interview? Match your attire to the type and style of organization. Dress for the part. Okay? So, wear formals. Be aware of what kind of work culture this company has. Be aware of what kind of attire they require an employee to be wearing and dress accordingly. It's not about how expensive your clothing is. Rather, it is about how professional you appear in whatever clothes you wear. Okay? So it's not about spending a lot of money or being able to afford very expensive clothes. Rather, it is about dressing for the part. Look the part. If you need to wear formals and make sure that you are comfortable in that particular attire. So practice wearing it. And when you go for an interview, it shouldn't look like you're wearing a suit for the first time in your life, if it is a suit that you are wearing. Okay? Enunciate your words. Enunciate is speaking, right? You just speaking it, each syllable should be clear. It should not look like your words are running all over the place, right? Enunciate your words slowly, clearly, and with adequate volume. You should be loud enough. A lot of the time we are enough and more loud when we are in our friends group. But when we are in front of an interview panel, for some reason, we lose our volume. That will not do. So we need to make sure that we are loud enough for the interviewers to hear us. Remember, sometimes interviewers can be old people, and you don't know if whatever low volume response you deliver is going to reach your interviewer. So make sure that you are adequately loud. Old people are often the most experienced people. They are almost always the people who have a lot of power inside within an enterprise, right? So you want to be heard by them. Remember that. You're not just randomly giving answers, you want to be heard by these people. Do not slouch. Slouching is sitting with your shoulders stooped. Okay, do not slouch. Sit up straight. Sit straight. Look into the eyes of the interview panel that is in front of you. Make sure to give them the feeling that you are addressing them. You're not speaking at them, you're speaking to them. If it is a video conference, make sure to address the camera just as you would address the interviewers if it were a person to person, in person interview. Right. Do not avoid eye contact. Do not dart around restlessly. Darting around is when we can't focus on any one person. We get so tensed and nervous that we look from one interviewer to the other interviewer to the other interviewer to the other interviewer. That will not do. Okay? So, when you are, a helpful tip here is that if you start a sentence by maintaining eye contact with one member in the interview panel, make sure to complete that sentence by maintaining eye contact with that member of the interview panel. Then you move on. Okay? You are starting a new sentence, you have the option to change your eye contact. You look at somebody else, start a new sentence, finish that sentence, move on. You are not looking straight ahead. You are not focusing only on one person, but at the same time, you are not quickly moving your eyes around all over the room, right? In case some answer goes downhill, drop the thought and move on. For some reason, let's imagine that one of your answers was very poor. It was the worst answer you could have given. But that's not the end of your interview. So you need to get that out of your mind and focus on the question that you are receiving at the moment. You can't dwell on the answer that you said 2 minutes ago. No, you need to get that out of your head. Drop the thought and address the question that is immediately in front of you. Okay? One wrong answer, one poor answer in a conversation is very much possible. But your ability to recover from that experience, your ability to be in the moment and address the question that is raised to you at the moment, that is what is most valuable. It is very much a skill to be able to do that. So when you are practicing, if all of your answers are perfect answers, you will not learn the skill. When you're practicing, make sure to mess up at least one answer so that you can train yourself to move on from a poor answer to address the question that is at hand. Right. When you are in front of a panel, there are some things that you need to take care of. It shouldn't look like you have very low energy, but it also shouldn't look like you're hyperactive. You shouldn't be very vague. Vague is unclear. You should also not be too specific. Don't give unnecessary details, right? Give necessary details. Be very selective about what you reveal to an interviewer. Do not appear disinterested, but also don't appear as if you're desperate for this job. You're too interested for this job. No, play it cool, okay? It shouldn't look like you are an underconfident person. It should also not look like you are an arrogant person. You're so full of yourself. There should be a balance in your comportment. You should appear as a well balanced person. Do not undersell yourself. Do not undervalue your own candidature, your own education. At the same time, do not oversell yourself. Do not say that you have skills which you do not actually have, right? Don't come across as too stiff or too desperate. Employers value ease and confidence in a candidate. In any given situation, how easily and how confidently you are able to conduct yourself is what is being investigated by an interviewer. Now, let's imagine you have given such wonderful interviews for all of your job applications, and now you have multiple job offers. How do you make a pick? Do you really want this job? Is this the job that you want? Or are external factors, it could be any kind of external factor, pushing you to take this job? Because if it is an external factor pushing you to take a job, you will not be able to do that job for very long. You will not remain satisfied in it. You will also not be able to contribute your best to that job. Okay? So ask yourself if it is the job that you really want. I'm sure you'll do this very well because all of you have dream jobs. You're all very clear about that. So I have complete confidence in you. But ask yourself, is this the job that you really want? Ask yourself if you feel overqualified or underqualified for this particular job. You should not undersell yourself, remember? You should also not oversell yourself. Do you need to visit the office and the workplace to know more before taking the offer up? If you feel like a visit in person might be beneficial to you, go ahead and make that visit. Remember our non-negotiables, things on which we are not willing to compromise? Go back to those non-negotiables. See if this job is respecting all of the things that you are not willing to compromise on before taking up that job offer. Now, these are your takeaways from this particular session. We end our session with this. I hope you'll remember these takeaways. We'll go through them once again. You need to research the company and reassess yourself before an interview. You need to know yourself, your CV or your resume, and the job description inside out. See, that is what happens when you speak too fast. I mess up, I jumble my words. So if you don't want that to happen, you speak a little slowly, right? You need to know yourself, your resume, and the job description inside out. Be prepared to answer questions from any of these, okay? Any nook and corner of these. An interviewer can pick out anything from your resume. Be prepared to address all of these questions. You can anticipate questions and you can prepare answers, but do not memorize your answers. Prepare and practice, don't memorize. You can use the interview to ask questions and know more about the role or the company. Make sure that your questions are all well informed questions. All these questions should show that you have done some amount of research on the company. You need to be confident, articulate. Articulate is well spoken, okay? And match the energy of the interviewers. You should be able to read a room. That is what you say. Read a room as in, if you have a very senior interview panel in front of you, make sure that your answers match their kind of energy, right? Do not make jokes. Do not make jokes in front of that senior interview panel. Try not to speak about some kind of a silly hobby you might have. Be very selective about the information that you reveal to them. If the interviewer, on the other hand, is asking you about your hobby, then you tell them about the hobby that you have. Okay? So match the energy of the interviewers. If they appear very serious, your answers should be very serious. Okay? After you get your offers, you need to carefully consider your options and make your choice. That is the end of our workshop session on interviews. I hope that these sessions were useful to you. For anyone who is not able to join these sessions, these will be uploaded to YouTube. Once they are uploaded, your course calendar will be updated with the links to these sessions. Okay? Thank you everybody for joining me today. I wish you all a wonderful night ahead. All the best now and in your career ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
If anybody has any questions, please raise them now.
Ma'am, do you have any email ID, ma'am, so that we can contact with you? Like if needed, we can ask a few of the doubts or questions.
Any questions that you have can be raised on the student forum. Okay? Your questions will be taken up and addressed.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. You may leave if you do not have any questions. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.